Hello, Emma. I almost said good morning, but you are in the UK, and so I know it's not morning for you.
No, we are heading towards tea time now.
And so you are a self-care and motherhood coach and educator, and you support moms with tools to move from overwhelm to balance. However, I have a really interesting question for you. What do you hate about the word self-care?
Do you know what? I actually hate the word itself because as much as it's in my name in terms of what I do. However,
Totally.
I think it's become such a buzzword and it has so much negativity attached to it that actually, in order for us to get to kind of any benefit from us, we've got to wade through a whole load of stuff before we even get to that point. Um, that being said, what other word do you use?
Oh my
What
gosh,
other word is there?
right?
I don't
I
know.
know. I think about this all the time in my practice as an expressive arts therapist for moms. And I think about like, what is the other word I can use?
Mm,
Because either people are going to roll their eyes,
mhm,
they're going to just totally shut down completely because they're getting it from every
mhm.
angle. They're like, Kayla, I fucking get it. I know that I'm supposed to do self-care. I know, like we all know this,
Yeah,
right? So it's just,
yeah.
tell me about how you view self-care in a way that might be a little bit different than women have internalized that
Hmm.
like the standard messaging around it.
Yeah, definitely. Because that's exactly it, isn't it? That we have this like idealized societal view that self-care is spa days and getting our nails done and getting our hair done and all of this stuff, which is wonderful. Don't get me wrong. They're wonderful things. However, self-care needs to be things that we can do daily and it needs to be things that can be integrated really easily into our lives, whether that's something that we do on our own or whether we also have to do it with our children or our partners or whoever else makes up that family dynamic. Because life is busy, and let's be realistic, like adding anything else to that to-do list is pretty overwhelming. So I think it also comes with this attachment of, well, if I do it and it doesn't work, I've just wasted my time.
Oh, I feel
So if
that.
I do that, yeah, and it's such a big thing, isn't it? Like, okay, well, if I'm going to spend half an hour doing that, and then oh my gosh, I don't actually feel any better because maybe it wasn't the right thing for me, then I've I've got half an hour when I could have done something else. So we've got all this stuff attached to it, haven't we? That actually everyone's talking about it. Everyone's saying that we must do it, that we should do it, and those words are not particularly helpful when we're thinking about something which actually it's really like simple fundamental thing is all about raising our energy, helping us to function in a way that actually we respond and we react in ways that we would prefer to respond and react. So I don't know about you, but when I am completely depleted, I'm exhausted, and I've not had that time, because even though I talk all about it, doesn't mean I always get it right, because we're all learning, right? Um, and my daughter can do something and I'm like straight up to 100, and we all do it because actually we need our energy to be kind of in a balance, but sometimes that balance isn't quite equal. Sometimes what's happening with the kids is a priority, or what is maybe happening at work is a priority, or what's happening with our partner or whatever, that actually we don't get to make maybe the time that we would like. So, what it has to be, from my perspective, is something that we can do around what we are already doing. So, whether that is we get to the school run 5 minutes earlier and we just sit in the car and we just breathe, just taking 5 deep breaths, really ground ourselves and be present. Or we get out of that car and we walk around the block before we go around and pick the kids up. We read a page of our book. I mean, because let's be realistic, we're not going to read a chapter in 5 minutes. So let's be really small and simple with those expectations, because we add that extra pressure, then we're not going to want to do it. We're making it into too much of a big thing. It has to be achievable and it has to be accessible. It should be fun. It should be fun. And I was talking to someone earlier today about it, and we were talking about how, well, yeah, you have all those chores that you have to do around the house. Why can't we put some music on while we do it? Why can't we dance while we do the washing, or we start making tea or the sandwiches or whatever? Turn that up really loud, and let's revitalize and refuel our energy that way. So it is really, for me, it's about it being fun, being playful, having different choices for what we need on different days, because we don't need the same thing 2 days in a row. Life changes daily, and actually what we might need today will be different from what we need tomorrow or in a week's time. And I think also coming from a place that it gets to be a bit of an experiment, so that actually we remove that pressure of, well, if it doesn't work, okay, well, I tried something. I learned something from that, that actually maybe that isn't the self-care practice that I actually benefit from. Maybe someone else said, well, that's actually, go and do this, but it really works for me. Actually, it might not work for you or the next person. So coming at it from, well, let's just try it. Let's just see, with no kind of expectations until we've tried it, that actually we're not coming at it with, well, if it doesn't work, we've already got that mindset then of, well, if it doesn't work, I've wasted my time or whatever, or I've spent this money or whatever it might be. Just try it and see. And it's that curiosity, it's that choice, and it's being playful with it. And then that can then build into those really healthy habits that then we can also support sharing and modeling that with our children as well.
Yeah, what I heard you say and like how it landed with me was like just adding in some intention to the time that you do have. And I think for me and the clients that I serve, one of the common myths that I hear is I don't have time. And I think for some people that is a very real obstacle or a very real barrier to self-care. Or maybe the prescribed kind of self-care that we think that it should be. And my kind of motto is, if you have time to scroll, you have time for self-care. And, we have this limb. It's like literally right here. Like I know exactly where it is all of the time. And we have this limb where we can access information. We can either confirm or deny some kind of thing that we're thinking, or this like shitty view we have of ourselves about decisions that we make. And when we have access to this normalized way that moms spend their time, I kind of liken it to like the mommy wine culture in terms of like the mom scrolling culture, where like scrolling is totally acceptable and like touted in certain ways on the internet. And something that I have to do, because my definition of self-care is anything that creates care and love that you turn towards yourself, in the same definition that you use care and love when you direct it towards your children. And so for me, I have to reorient to that all of the time, because I can get really caught up in I don't have time. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a shift working partner. Like my partner works away. And I have 2 kids in 2 different schools at 2 different ages. Like I can really get stuck in the story that I don't have time. When in reality, for me, I'm not going to speak for other people, but for me, self-care is just doing this less. It's not actually adding anything else into my day. On any particular day, if I do that, scrolling less, I feel differently about how I mother or how I show up. And for some people, the phone is like a security blanket. And, I don't want to take anything away from somebody who finds joy or inspiration or goodness in the scrolling. The type of scrolling that I do is to confirm or deny if I'm a good parent. Right. And it's like, that's not helpful. That's just not helpful.
And
so that's
should
like
be helpful.
Yeah.
I think it's such a different perspective, isn't it? That actually self-care might be doing something less rather than adding more. And I think however you look at it, either way, it's about doing things that serve you well and then serve those around you as well, isn't it? And having that self-awareness that actually, if I do that, that's going to be the outcome of that that's going to benefit me and those around me, whether that is scrolling less, whether it is putting on some music, whether it is turning the TV off and actually having a conversation, whether it's, sitting and colouring with your children, whatever it is, it's about adding in that joy, isn't it? Adding in that love, that compassion, that kindness that is going to fill up and refuel those energy levels for both yourself and then in turn for your children, your partner, etc., etc. Because it has a ripple effect, doesn't it? If we are functioning from a place where we feel good, then how we respond and react in those different situations is so much better. So much better.
And a lot of what self-care means for me is self boundaries, right? And so it's the boundary or the awareness or the intention around how I'm spending my time. Like you said, how I'm sitting in the school pickup line. Am I scrolling or am I sitting there with my eyes closed, face towards the sun? Am I telling myself positive stuff? And I think the toxic positivity, or that, I think affirmations, there's a lot of opinions about some of those things too. And I don't view it as just reframing a negative thought into a positive one. It's am I talking to myself the way that I want other people to talk to me? Or am I just sitting here stewing in how I decided to handle the morning, or how present or not my partner has been, right? And so I really liked your take on the self-care being achievable and fun, right? Because then I think when it's not those things, that's when the should starts to enter into the conversation.
And having that benefit to it and knowing what that benefit is, obviously once you know what it is that you enjoy and what's going to give you, that joy, that, that benefit is going to help you feel more motivated to do it again. If you do, forget to do it one day or something else gets in the way, because real life happens and things happen, that actually you then do feel motivated to think, actually I can pick it up again tomorrow. I can continue to build those healthy habits, because actually one day is not going to make a difference in the long run, because I'm here for the long game of supporting myself, caring for myself. And if it's not achievable, however that self-care practice looks, because our lives are all so different, we are all so different, our family makeup is so different, so whatever it looks like, it has to work with what is already there. And I think also it's really important to note with that what is happening in your life right now as well, because if we're facing any of those kind of big life changes, or things are shifting, maybe we're in a difficult phase, we're not getting as much sleep depending on how old our kids are, etc., 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 that actually what we can achieve at that point is going to be different to what we can achieve when we are having lots of sleep, when we're not working within that space that maybe there are some challenges that we're facing. And so I think it's really important that we start to build that toolbox of different things that we can access at different times when we need them. And part of that might also be communicating that to our partner, our friends, our family, that actually, when we are in that state of full on overwhelm, we're stressed, we're up here, that actually, if I can't do it myself, because often when we're in that state, we're not going to access self-care because we're up here and we're not going to come to that space. So actually we might need somebody else to be like, you know, if you go and do this or you go and do that, that's going to help. And I think a really important part of self-care is also that communication, both externally with others, but also internally with ourselves, and what we need, and listening to what's going on for us.
Mhm. Mhm. Can you tell me what your favorite self-care practice is right now that is achievable in the phase of life that you're in?
So my favorite, well, I have two favorites actually. Okay. So the first one is journaling, which is something that I've always loved doing. However, it's probably taken me up until the end point of this year end point of last year even, to really be like, okay, I need to do this daily now. And I mean, I've missed 2 days this week. It's half term. I started it again this morning, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not adding in that extra pressure, because actually, what does that give me by adding in, well, you didn't do it, I didn't do it, so what? I started again today, and that's absolutely fine. So that is a key thing. And the other thing, which is another new thing I discovered, is going to the gym and doing weight training is actually another thing that I need. Definitely for my mental health. Obviously, it's impacting upon my physical health as well. But I think for me, both of those two things, I notice now when I don't do them regularly, and then the impact that has on then how I'm feeling and how I respond. And so those two are definitely my favorites at the moment. Yeah, how about yours?
I love art journaling. So I create collages and like images with pastels and little paint sticks in my art journal. I find that with my ADHD, I used to be able to journal a lot, like pre-children. And now I find it actually really challenging. If I do it like before the day kind of starts, I can get that like stream of consciousness kind of going. So I find for me right now in the phase of life I'm in, art journaling, even though people can think that it actually takes more time because I'm like cutting and gluing and doing collage kind of things, I actually find that it holds my attention longer. So that would be one. And my second is intentional music listening. And so like putting on music that is either going to like boost my mood or honor my mood for a moment, or like allow me to kind of process an emotion. But yeah, I really like, there's music playing pretty much from the time I wake up till the kids go to bed. Just because I find that it really helps all of us like regulate and be more present with each other.
I love that. I think one thing that me and my daughter, we haven't done it as much because I've started listening to audiobooks in the car instead, because that's something that, I find it really difficult to read. And that's when it comes to being accessible, doesn't it? Well, there's another way to do that. I can listen to it in the car, like when I drive. I've got a 40-minute drive to drop my daughter off at school sometimes. Well, I can, listen to most of a chapter in 40 minutes, depending on, so that, reframing it in that way, that actually there's another way. We listen to musicals a lot in the car, and we sing a lot, which that is a definite mood booster. But I think all the things that we've kind of said, obviously apart from going to the gym, because you're not going to take your children to the gym unless you've got a home gym, you can do with other people, and that's an important element of that as well, isn't it? That actually it doesn't have to just be on your own, it can be with others as well, especially during half terms, weekends, maybe the kids are off school sick or whatever, that actually those practices don't necessarily need to stop. It's just a reframe and maybe a bit of a change and switch up of how you might do them.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that really feeds into that. Is it achievable, or can my capacity, do I have the capacity for that thing today? And so, yeah, like you said, that's a really good, like noticing around, okay, well, if the kids are sick or, we're on break or whatever, I can't maybe go to the gym as often as I'd like to, depending on work schedules and all those kinds of things. And so to have you know, the thing that you can do at home or in your car or, you know, with other people is really important. I've actually had a lot of people message me about how I actually do art with my kids around, because it can take it's a lot of like brain power, right? To like set them up with something so that I can work on something, or having the patience or the capacity for them to like want to join me or want to make something. And it can kind of make my skin crawl sometimes of like, this is my thing. This is my time. Can you just let me have a thing? But it's that experimenting, that inner commitment to myself, is that I am going to figure out a way to do this so that I don't have to do it in seclusion. Because if I have to wait for that opportunity when I am alone and all of the stars align and all of the things, then truthfully, in this phase of life that I'm in, I would never do it. And for me, that is a really big barrier, because creativity, whether it's art journaling or just sitting down to read or write poetry, whatever it is part of a non-negotiable for me. Like it is on the to-do list with just as much priority as some of the other things. And so it has taken me, like my oldest is 9, and it has taken me probably 2 or 3 years in the middle there, when we added in our second child, to really figure out the groove between what I can handle, reading the room in terms of what they can handle in the moment, like how much stimulus do I add to this? What do I get them to be doing while I'm doing that? And so it takes some finessing. It's not just like I sit down and art journal and it goes perfectly every time, which is what people see on social media, right? When I post about it, it's like, look what I did today. And they're like, how did you do that? It takes practice. And I think, you know, someone told me this about a meditation practice, which I'm not consistent with, but it's like, not every time you sit down to meditate is it going to give you that feel good feeling that you search for every time you sit down to meditate, for those who do that. And I've really taken that message into the other self-care moments in my life and have been like, okay, even if I don't get that like perfect, feel good, totally stress removing feeling from this activity, the gold star comes from the fact that I tried, or that I set the intention to, or that I just, even if I only did it for 5 minutes, it's still 5 minutes in that direction.
And even though you didn't feel that benefit directly, there's still benefit there, isn't there? Being present, in just taking a moment just to sit, just to be in whatever self-care practice you're doing. And I think what you were talking about with the doing your art journaling and the children, you know, then also needing to, you know, be involved or do the, you know, I think when we're doing things with them, when we're modeling that practice, we're gifting them, you know, the opportunity to also work out what is going to work for them as they grow in terms of looking after themselves. Like, is it that, or is it doing this? Is it trying that? And also, I think those moments where we are all just present together as a family is also so, you know, energy refueling, because you are just, even if you're not talking to each other, you're just doing, you're all present together in that moment. And I think that's also a really beautiful addition to self-care when we do it with others as well.
Yes. And I think it shows them the importance of prioritizing yourself. And
so true.
And no judgment or shame to anybody who is listening to this and currently does all of their self-care separate from their families. None whatsoever. But I think when you can, and the activities align with your children being able to be around, whatever that, reading, coloring, whatever it looks like, I think it shows them that you're willing to try and that your needs matter, right? And that this can be just my thing. You know, like my kids don't often ask to do color on my art anymore because I've set the boundary that this is my thing. And sometimes they are totally allowed to, right? And sometimes I will say yes. But most of the time they understand that this is my activity and I enjoy it. And I'm going to give you all the materials if you want to do it yourself on your own paper. But it sets that up to be exploratory and be open and try things. Maybe art isn't your kids' thing or your teenagers or whatever it looks like. But as a woman raising two boys, I want them to understand the value that women take time to take care of themselves.
Definitely. And I think, you know, when we think about different family makeups, how much time people have, it is so individual and it is so personalized.
Yes.
Self-care gets to be that. It's not what, you know, it doesn't have to be what I've said is my favorite thing, doesn't have to be what you've said is yours. It can be something completely different, and you have to do what works for you with the time that you have, with how your life is already set up. And if you try it and it doesn't work, or your kids being there doesn't work, okay, you learn from that. And I think there's so much learning in, you know, maybe making those mistakes, trialing things. If it doesn't work, okay, well, I try something else. And that is absolutely, you know, having that permission to actually just try.
Yes.
You know, we give that same permission to our kids. You know, we give them the same kindness and compassion if they make a mistake. You know, if we think about a kid learning to ride a bike, well, we don't say to them, well, you fell off it, it didn't work, don't try again.
Don't ever try again. You weren't perfect.
Yeah. We don't say that. We say, come on, give it another go. What you did there was really good. Try this next time. I'm here. We're going to keep going. And that's exactly the same way that we should be speaking to ourselves in terms of self-care, and also in terms of other new things that we might go and try.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. I have a friend who bakes, like, and she bakes to win, is like, she, like, that is her thing, right? And I can't comprehend the, like, all of the dishes and all of the pieces and the timing of the baking of the thing and the icing of the thing. Like, I just, my brain doesn't work like that. I'm like, I'm good at muffins, or I'm good at, like, pretty standard cupcakes, you know? Like, but she does. She does these things. I have another friend who runs, and I cannot imagine running or prioritizing it, making the time for it. Like, it is absolutely not in my wheelhouse. I also hate yoga. People think is really surprising because I'm a little bit like medium woo woo, you know, like I like crystals and tarot cards and art therapy. I don't like yoga. A friend of mine invited me to her yoga class, and I was like, I love you, but I'm just not gonna. I can't. It is not in my wheelhouse. And I gave those things all a really good go. Right? Like, I went to a couple of yoga classes. All my therapists were like, you know, maybe you need yoga, calm your mind, calm your body, calm your brain. And it was like, I enjoyed it enough to keep trying it. And then it was like, this is not my thing. I much prefer more like HIIT routines or like fast, kind of like moving, intense physical activity. And so it's also the experimenting really also allows you to understand, what are your no's? Like, what are the things that you're not going to prioritize, that you won't participate in? You know, after you've maybe been curious about it, but also understanding that, like, I will always come back to art, journaling, and music. That's just like, on my worst day, that's what I'm going to do, because I've stretched that muscle since I was 14. And so for me, it's a normal and expected part of how I cope. I was having a hard day the other day. My friend was like, you need to make art about it, you know? And it's just like, And it totally made sense. I was like, why didn't I think of that?
Mhm. But that's the thing,
So
isn't it? It's got to be something that works for us and individually, and you're going to know when you find that thing, because it's going to be something that you really notice when you don't do it.
yes, so true. Yes. Oh, Emma, thank you so much for being here and busting some myths about self-care and giving the listeners the gift of the achievable and fun context at which they look at self-care through, because we have so much prescribed self-care that I already feel more free just from this conversation in identifying the simple things in my toolbox that are achievable and fun. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.